talk elections and particularly voter participation on this episode of Law Weekly with Collins Okeke, a Senior Program Officer of the Human Rights Law Service. We also have the highlights from the 3rd Lawyers in Oil and Gas Conference, plus our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the show. I am Shola Shuyeli. On Wednesday, the 8th of May, the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, led by the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zainab Bukachua, disclosed that he received 786 petitions challenging the outcome in some of the just concluded general elections.
So far, we've empaneled 78 panels to cover the election tribunals in all the states of the Federation, excluding Jigawa State, where no election petition has been filed. The panels are now in place and have started hearing the petitions. There are presently 786 petitions, with Imo State having the highest number of 76 petitions, which necessitated the posting of 6 panels to the state.
Justice Bukachua warned lawyers, the media, litigants and members of the public from analyzing its proceedings in the public while assuring Nigerians and the international community of its resolve to dispense justice in all the petitions. While we look forward to the legal battle at the tribunals, many have identified some issues with the Electoral Act and even the Constitution. One of such groups is the Human Rights Law Services, HURI Laws, founded in 1997. HURI Laws is a public policy think tank and pressure group working in partnership with multi-sector development and change actors to promote accountable and transparent governance in Nigeria. Mr. Collins Okeke is a Senior Program Officer with HURI Laws. He describes participation as the cornerstone of elections and says that after a careful review of most of the reports and results of the elections, the level of voter participation is disturbing, and in his view, it requires a constitutional amendment.
I think the laws are crafted in a way that does not encourage popular participation in elections. I'm particularly concerned with Section 134 and 179. If you read Section 134 and 179, you see that the emphasis appears to be on votes cast and not even registered voters. So what that does is that for a candidate to be elected, say, into the office of governor or president, he doesn't really need to get most of the votes of most of the registered voters. Once he's able to get a percentage of the votes in the required number of local governments, then he can become elected. And I think there's something fundamentally wrong with that kind of arrangement, because what it does is that it doesn't put any pressure on political parties to mobilize people to participate in the elections. It also does not impose any obligation on INEC to also ensure that people participate. And I hold the view that the whole essence of elections is to get people to be part of the political process. Now, if you conduct elections and people are not, at least a sizable number of eligible voters or registered voters do not participate in the process, I think the entire election would have failed. And if you ask me to do an honest assessment of what has happened over the past, say, 10 years, I will honestly tell you that I think that we've had failed elections, basically. Like in the case of what happened in 2019, you have, according to INEC, you have 80 million registered voters, and after the elections, we're able to just get about 30 million people participating. I think, for me, it's not even a pass mark. And then for me, I also look at it from the point of view of legitimacy. So can somebody who participated in an election where 80 million people registered and just about 50 million people voted for him, can the person honestly say that he has the popular mandate of the people? I think there's something fundamentally wrong with that kind of arrangement.
But how do you respond to the argument that political participation is not obligatory? Can you really force people to vote?
I think that the law should be structured in a way that would impose an obligation on political parties, candidates and INEC to ensure that people meet a threshold before that they can be elected into public office. Section 179 says, for instance, that a candidate for an election to the office of governor of a state shall be deemed to have been duly elected where, there being 2 or more candidates, he has the highest number of votes cast at the election, and he has not less than 1/4 of all the votes cast in each of at least 2/3 of the local government areas in the state. Now, the operative word for me is he has the highest number of votes cast at the election. Now, if you compare this particular provision with the requirements for recall, for instance, you will see that the emphasis appears to be on registered voters. Section 69, for instance, provides that a member of the Senate or of the House of Representatives may be recalled as such a member if there is presented to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission a petition in that behalf signed by more than 1/2 of the persons registered to vote in that member's constituency, alleging their loss of confidence in that member. So you see that the operative word there is registered to vote. So meaning that if I intend to recall any of my representatives in the House of Representatives or the Senate, I have to essentially go door to door to get 1/3 of people in my constituency to sign up.
To get 1/2 of
yes, 1/2 of it, yes.
Who have registered.
Yes, to recall him. Now, but if you look at the section for electing him, this bar does not exist. So it's just number of votes cast. So I think that what this does is that the politicians really don't need to put in so much effort to get elected. But then when you want to now, when the people now want to recall, it becomes a big challenge. So they now have to meet this very, very high standard to be able to recall that legislator. So my argument is either the standard is set high for electing and for recall, or lowered for electing and recalling. So that's because I think that we have to have a uniform standard for electing and recalling. You know, let me give you another analogy, which I think would probably bring out this point better. Now, with what transpired at the National Assembly, even though some people may think it's political, but what happened at National Assembly when it was time to elect a Senate president, the requirement is a simple majority. But when it's time to recall, you see that the standard is now 2/3. And I find it ironic. If the person was elected by a simple majority of members, then why should the Constitution now require 2/3 to remove him? It should be the same standard. Because what it now does is that to elect a Senate president or a Speaker of the House of Representatives, they don't even need to bring everybody together to elect. Once they're able to form a quorum, they can elect, which is what transpired during the Saraki era. But when it comes to recall, you see that there is an obligation to bring in as every member of the House to participate in the process of recall. And I think it's undemocratic to have an arrangement like that. There ought to be a common standards for electing and for recalling. And you see, the tragedy of this kind of arrangement is that if you observe the 2019 elections, you see that INEC and even the political parties appeared not to be making heavy weather about the number of people that were excluded from participating in the elections, either for violence or for whatever reasons. You see that it's not a big issue once that small threshold has been met by whoever is declared winner. But so for me, I think that is also not fair for the people, fair on the people that were excluded, and also on the political system as well, because if you observe what happened in Lagos, for instance, you notice that during the presidential election, there appeared to be some kind of enthusiasm to participate. But after the incident in Okeke and a couple of other places, you see that people's morale dampened when it was now time to do the governorship, because they felt that there was a contrived or an attempt by some people to prevent them from participating in the political process. So I think that there is an urgent need to make adjustments or amendments or alterations to our constitutional provisions on the threshold for people to get elected into office in such a way that it either raises the bar for electing and recalling, or it reduces the bar for electing and recalling. And makes it uniform.
So who has the responsibility for effecting this change?
The National Assembly. I think the National Assembly needs to do something about these particular provisions of the Constitution. I think that it needs to.
But it benefits them, so why would they do anything?
That is the challenge. That's a big challenge. But I think that as Nigerians, we should also begin to raise concerns about these uneven standards that the Constitution provides. Because from elections should be about people participating. So if we are spending billions of naira every 4 years to conduct elections, and people are not participating, for me, I think that it is not fair on us as Nigerians and on the economy, basically.
We already say that money plays a huge role in our politics. So if we shift the burden to INEC and the politicians to ensure that more people come out to participate, wouldn't that be more expensive and lead to more corruption?
Well, then it now becomes the problem of the people. So if people keep electing people, if people keep collecting money to elect people, then it becomes, then whatever they get, it becomes their, how do I put it? They live with whatever decisions that they make. If we're going to get people into office, there should be the same. There should be one standard for getting them into office, and also for recalling them. So we can't lower the bar for them to get in, and then raise the bar to get them out. That is my concern. So, and I've looked at our elections over the years. What I've observed is that it appears as if, as we conduct elections, the numbers are going down instead of going up, even though the voters registers, the number of people that are registered is going up. And so for me, it raises two issues. And to me, is either people don't have confidence in the system, or there's something fundamentally wrong with the voters register. But either way, there's a problem with the system.
But what obtains in other advanced democracies? Is it the same?
Some parts of the world, they do what is called proportional representation, meaning that people are elected into office based on the number of votes they're able to garner. So, for instance, if after an election you don't win the popular vote, that's you don't get elected, but you're able to garner a particular percentage of votes, you will be allowed to still have representation, say, in the National Assembly. But we don't have that kind of arrangement. Our political process is structured in such a way that it is the people who win or who get the highest votes that get the political offices. I believe that maybe an amendment to provisions of the Constitution would help, but we also have to be creative in terms of figuring out how to get more people to participate in the political, because there appears to be I've noticed that there appears to be no interest in ensuring that we get as many people as possible to participate in our elections in Nigeria.